A will be paying $13,683 towards the membership, and I would like the rest to come from the operating budget. The total membership is, for Topsfield, is $33,491. And the last item is library network administration. My IT vendor is going to go up about 3%, and I would like $537 to cover that. She takes care of all the public computers, the staff computers, the network, the firewall, our cloud backup. She does all those things.
And there's not anticipated savings. Oh, Catherine, there's a recording in progress. There's not savings in other line items that you could juggle off.
That's what I'm hoping is going to happen, because I didn't ask for an increase in supplies. I know that nothing ever goes down. So I'm hoping that we'll use less in like supplies, or less in electricity, or other line items, so that I can, if I don't get those funds, to offset that. You know, my philosophy is I try to predict as best I can what's going to happen in the next fiscal year. My philosophy has been, I ask you for a certain amount of money, and that's what I hope I can make it through the year with. And I have been successful doing that, even though some line items have overrun, like the unanticipated building maintenance.
So Laura, when you went through these items, was that all of them?
Yes.
Okay. When you go through these, in the first one, the $1,300, those are contractual obligations. They're not a choice. The
No, I'm
contracts-
going to have to pay those.
The contract calls for those. Contracts call for those. I know the elevator, the only option you have on not doing those elevator repairs is to shut down the elevator. Because the elevator inspector will not let you operate the elevator if you do not do those repairs.
Exactly,
Right.
and then we would not be accessible.
And the membership at $300 is a requirement to be a member. That's not, again, an optional.
Right,
Service bureau fee.
Right, yeah, we couldn't operate as a standalone library.
So the point I'm just trying to make clear to everybody is, these are not nice to haves. They're not a change in your operations or the services. It's just to continue doing what you're doing.
Excuse me, sir, there is a video recording in progress. Hey, Boyd, are you staying?
No.
Okay, and I won't tell you there's a video recording.
Pardon me?
Never mind.
So really, there's no growth in the budget in terms of growth in services or changing in services. It's just to continue and maintaining what's happening now. So, are there any questions about that?
Yeah, did the 1,300, was that in the budget Catherine sent out? I'm looking at the over, I'm looking at 1426 and 300,
Right,
right? And then I'm seeing 308 and 537.
I'm sorry, I gave you the wrong number. It's 1426.
Yeah,
I said 1,300.
Yeah, that's what that's okay. Sorry.
1426.
My head can't get around
Thank you.
that.
I didn't put my glasses on.
Okay. Not questioning it, just for my own curiosity, what does the Service Bureau fee provide? I mean, it's clearly, is that the books, is that everything?
no, that's, it actually is all the services, like the online, the OPAC,
Okay.
and the actual system that we check in, check out books, and acquire stuff. They also supply staff network. They also supply advice to the library for cataloging, circulation, and reference. So Merrimack Valley Library Consortium is 36 libraries.
I put 800 of that is already in the version 2.0.
Okay, because it was contractual.
Contractual, yeah.
Where in the line item is acquiring new books and such. So I went through and
That-
looked before.
It
Nothing
actually-
jumped out.
It actually isn't in
Okay.
the operating budget. All the materials come from Gould A.
Okay,
Gould A, the small trust,
Yeah.
and Lost Books.
okay.
One thing I wanted to mention is the municipal appropriation requirement. That's what the, I put a sheet in my budget, and it is not an issue for this year, but it's, the town, it's the average of the past 3 years with a 2.5 increase. So that's to maintain our certification, and there's no problem with the MAR for this year.
Yeah, typically because we have salary increases,
That's
it's not a problem.
exactly.
The average the last 3 years increased 2.5%, and with that. How is the Gould Fund doing?
Good, as far as I know. We do get over $100,000 in interest for the material expenditure.
In A, and then B must have a similar amount?
And B has a similar amount, yes.
And what are you thinking of doing with B now that the bond is paid off?
Well, we did do some minor renovations to the meeting room. I don't know if you noticed.
I saw, it's very nice.
So we used about 15,000 to do that. The trust commissioners, the trustees have met with the trust commissioners, and what they would like to do is put away, keep a large part of Gould B for future renovations or things that might have to be done to the library.
It can be used for repairs.
It can be used for maintenance, yeah.
Elevators?
Well, we've kind of considered Gould B as maintenance above and beyond. So if we had a huge issue with the roof, for example, I think the trust commissioners would be interested in contributing towards that. For maintenance, like a yearly kind of maintenance, I think they are less inclined to use Gould B for that.
No, you had, you said
It's
much better
mine.
than I
It's
would.
mine.
Okay.
Have we had anyone start talking, focusing on that building in terms of how do we keep it as good as it is by putting some money at it now, rather than avoiding?
We do try to, I do try to do repairs
Yeah.
as they come up. And also, I have Dan Philpott as a consultant, and he has been invaluable to assist me in determining things that need to be done to keep the building in the best shape possible. We have put off some cosmetic things like interior painting to take care of more pressing issues.
Do we have, I guess what I'm hoping we can do is work towards a multi-year, here's the things that are 2, 4, 8, 10 years out that we anticipate, and how we can handle those. I don't know if that's started.
It has. I'm going to be working with Dan to talk about some envelope issues, and then some minor, what I would like to do is use Gould B to do some minor refurbishing, like second floor, periodical room, old lobby, and mystery room, carpeting. I got an estimate for it was under 5,000 to replace that, and then talk about circulation carpeting, because that's about 20 years old, and then the children's room carpeting.
The hardware areas.
Right, the hardware areas. The second floor still is looking pretty good. I know that we're gonna have, as I mentioned, we're gonna have some roof inspections done with the slate roof, and see if we can do any preventative things there. So that's kind of what we're planning on the 2-year horizon.
What's the age of the roof?
It was 97, was it not, when we,
97 or 98?
yes, when we, in fact, Andrew and I were both on the trustees at the time. And I think that whole new portion of the building was put up, including the refurbishing of the old roof and adding the new roof, and there's been issues, I mean, just through the fact that when you attach an old piece to a new piece, there's going to be issues sometimes. But thanks to this young lady who has been very facility conscious, we've been able to keep a very close eye on it, you know, so I would say it has to be at least 20, gonna be 22, 20 or.
So I asked that question because we talked about the roofs on this building last year. And the roofs on this building are substantially older than that in many cases.
Yeah, yeah.
In some places. In some cases.
In
It's
some
not
places.
quite as old.
Yeah,
Right.
The library was finished first, I think.
well, there was a school building
Year or so.
committee back in that, I thought that same era, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think the schools were maybe a year later.
Yeah.
Think, with Gould B, at least there's money to help.
Mhm.
And Gould B helped build the building because interest had piled up, so there was a substantial down payment to do the renovation and expansion. And it sounds like that will happen again to some extent.
To some extent, right.
You also use B for the art loan
We
and
do,
for the
for-
music program, right?
Right.
But we're not in danger of outrunning the Gould B 100,000 a year interest.
Nowhere near.
Any other thoughts or questions?
I have a minor question, just because I'm curious. What is the non-energy line item?
Oh, that's our water.
Water? Oh. So,
So have you built in the increased water rates into your,
No, I didn't.
Do you anticipate that they'd be significant?
They've been going up, they've been ramping them up to match so that when they have the full bond to pay off for the water treatment plant, it's not a huge step.
so that's something we want to make sure when we're looking at water costs.
Yeah.
It's either incorporated or anticipated.
Or that people have found that they're using less water than they had budgeted for, and it works out.
Question is your network administration, is that a flat service fee you get, or do you estimate the guy's gotta come in and fix stuff?
Well, she gives us like a contract rate, and she does consulting and the maintenance kind of stuff.
Okay. So is she on a service contract, or is it hourly billed?
It's a service contract.
Okay.
She also works in a lot of other libraries, so she's familiar with
Mhm.
our situation.
Yeah.
All right, if there's no other questions, any final thoughts or comments you have, ladies?
Thank you for letting me speak, and I think that you have the hardest job.
That's for
Thanks,
sure.
thanks for coming in,
We
and
really
thanks for the
thank
good
you
work
for
at the
the time you
library.
give to the community. I know, having been married to a man who spent a lot of time in giving to the community, that it's not only taking your time, but your family's time away from you. So we really appreciate it, and thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Thanks for the work you do.
Returning the favor, thank you, my daughter visits you all often. Thank you for that.
Good night.
Good night. Since we had 10 minutes before our next scheduled appointment, we can look at the minutes of January 29th.
Motion to approve the minutes of January 29th as written.
Is there a second?
For you, for a second.
Discussion?
I've read it.
You'll abstain. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And we abstain because he was present. Let's see. There's that. Do we have any updates in operating budgets, revenues, other expenditures at this point?
I do not. I reached out to Paula Burke at the Council on Aging today,
Mm-hmm.
a little delinquent. And when I hear back, however, I think next week is pretty heavily booked, is that right?
On the 12th, we have the clerk at 7,
Look at 7, I think
and
Kelly's-
Kelly will come in and talk about capital, Board of Selectmen related.
How long will it be this week, might be able to, I mean, how long will it?
I would think about the same as the library, 20 minutes or so, although Paula might have a lot of thoughts of what's been going on over there, so it's anywhere between 20 minutes and half an hour, I'd say.
Do we want to put them all together? I know we wanted to try to get this done by the 12th.
Yeah,
That was the last date on the calendar, that's why I'm
Yeah.
asking the question.
yeah, because otherwise we're out past President's Day.
I don't think the town clerk will be long.
I don't think so, but I have, in that mind, I'm going to be away, and I'm wondering if one of you could be sort of advocate.
Sure.
Yeah, I just have a trip coming up.
Is it about
So it's
public
software-
records?
It's public record, it's software to manage public, yes, it's software to manage public records. It's just asking for some labor.
Plus the more elections in the coming year
Yeah,
than in the
Right,
present year.
but her big,
Yeah, the
over and
big
above
one is
are
the
our
public
records.
records.
So maybe talk to her about all those, should I talk to you or talk to her?
What did-
What did we do?
I'll talk to you.
Monday.
Next Monday.
Yeah, Monday, just it's.
Monday the 12th,
I'll
which Mike
explain it, I'll
won't be
give
here
you
and
my
Shay won't
biases
be here.
and then
Because I
all
think
my
the schools
biases.
are gonna be the
What?
26th.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's fine.
And we're probably gonna want the whole time for that.
Yeah, so
yeah.
maybe let's do it the 12th then, because we don't want to do it like
I think if we have the clerk at 7 and council on aging at 7:15 and Kelly at 7:30, Kelly will be there for all of that. Anyhow.
that makes sense.
I will invite the Council on Aging at 7:15.
7:15.
But at this point, we would expect to wrap things up next week.
Yeah, except for the
Schools.
elementary schools, and I'm sure Masconomet will have to
The
do that.
planning board has if anyone is interested, a forum scheduled for the 13th, mostly regarding their zoning bylaw amendments for marijuana, I believe, so if anyone's interested in that. I don't know when we're gonna have the planning board
Well, usually they don't have things,
wrapped up until later, probably
Yeah.
sometime in March.
yeah.
Another update, I went to a 7-hour school committee meeting on Saturday. They, it wasn't what I was expecting. I was expecting them to, working on prioritization and working on banding and taking action. And it was more philosophical approach.
Kind of an overview and,
I gave them our perspective a few times. Mr. Gant gave his perspective as well, so we know what they need to do, and they need to go get that done, and we need to figure that out. I'd say, overarching, you know, they feel that that first budget that they proposed is in line with level services, and I would say a majority of the time was focused on how the needs for the technology are still not where they need to be. But there's a growing gap between Topsfield and then Middleton and Oxford. Both in terms of smart boards in classrooms, endpoint user devices, so there's a lot of homework, that information gathering that they're in to try to figure out what they think about that. Volunteered that I didn't think the climate was appropriate for any overrides, or anything overriding.
well, it will be interesting as they go through their process.
Did they express any direction they might take to respond to that?
Reading the tea leaves, there's mixed opinions on what they should do and need to do. So I think they just have to hack it out and decide what to do. And I'm very strong to the superintendent on what they need to do.
There obvious lever is class size.
They want small class sizes. Correct.
Okay, so is the technology stuff like computers and stuff, where you said like electronic blackboards?
So-
I'm trying to figure out what that means in terms of the kids learning.
So,
I'm not an education expert.
yeah, and again, there is the whole video for 4 hours, it's posted, so you
Okay.
can hear them talk about it, but, it's efficiencies with, for example, this is gonna take, I mean, we literally talked about it for 4 hours, so. The historical teaching model was for the, post-World War II era, when the knowledge was in the one teacher's head, and the one teacher's knowledge was given to the student, and then it was tested. Now, kind of fast forwarding into the future with the Internet of Things and, where the future's going, AI, et cetera, it's much more of a student-driven learning experience. So, and then there's things that are in between. So smart boards are things that are in between where a teacher can go seamlessly from, oh, there's this video that can play something that describes something much better than I could on my own, and then you could flip to, so it's efficiencies about curriculum, about transparency, about being able to be efficient as opposed to just the Blackboard technique. So that's one, the power of that smart board in their rooms, whether they use it for lessons, for, again, I'm not doing it justice compared to the school committee, that's not, I'm more of the numbers guy, but I'm just telling you quickly what I heard.
Sure.
So whether they have Chromebooks in their hand, that is more of a the student initiative to be able to go and do their research on a topic that they wanna do on their own. That's more of that self-learning environment. So there is the LAN Wi-Fi infrastructure that needs to work, which is getting dated. There are the actual smart boards in each room, and I think they think that we're at 60% of where we need to be, or that's what the technology person on the Tri-Town School Union perspective. And then some of those smart boards are a bit dated. I think they cost $6,000 a piece, if I'm right, something like that. So anyway, those are some of the topics that they were contemplating. So the school committee asked that technological person to come up with what would it cost to get us caught up with Boxford and Middleton in terms of both the smart boards and then the device piece as well.
Yeah, certainly trade Middleton class sizes.
Do they have a sense of, you said 60%, maybe not the exact, of where we should be? Did they give us a sense whether we're gaining or falling behind on that?
We're falling behind.
Each year we're falling behind?
Yes.
As measured by amount of stuff in the room or evidence and.
So again, they didn't have stuff baked
Right.
out
I don't
and
need
fleshed
to
out,
drill
so
them.
I'm trying to guess what they were saying. I think what they were saying is if they want, they're talking about, this is what we want a classroom of the
Yeah.
future to look like.
Yeah.
So some classrooms have smart boards that are up to date, and some have them that are antiquated, and some don't have any at all. So I think it's, I don't know if it's the number of classrooms that they want to have that, if it's 100% of the classrooms to have a new smart board, or if it's some hybrid approach. That's all the detail that they still need to, that's why I was saying it was a philosophical conversation, not a specific conversation.
Sounds like they have a lot of work to do.
Yeah. It's like you got a tough job.
We talked a lot about trade-offs,
Yeah.
choices and decisions.
Yeah.
Or I volunteered that proactively.
Or take the approach Masconomet did for some of its technology, and the Masconomet Ed Foundation raised a whole lot of money.
And that's the other point that I pointed out, that, some of these technologies that we're talking about replacing are ones that we purchased when I was first liaison, because it was 6 years ago, and, so it's, what is capital expenditure versus what should be in your ongoing budget versus what should be funded privately versus what should be funded in the base budget.
So a lot of technology today has pretty short life.
Correct.
3 years is typical of what we
Correct.
use.
Mr. Gant and I got up and talked about that, and so they need to figure out what's the replenishing cycle. There's two things that they need to do. They need to get full rollout, and then they need to maintain.
And sustain it and
And
not
so we're
veer
kind of,
off.
now, these talks that they're talking about are more of replacing and trying to, they call it climbing the mountain. So there's two different things that has to happen.
Yeah.
That's right. And then at some point, the wireless network is very dated. I think the Middleton Wi-Fi update, I think it's gonna be $1 million. I think is what they talked about in the meeting. I gotta go back to my.
Yeah.
The video will have it. It was
Yeah.
publicized on TV. I might have heard that wrong, but I was stunned at the number, so.
Wow,
Well,
Big
it's two
dollars.
buildings,
Yeah.
it was, yeah.
lots of area. Well, okay. So we'll see them perhaps the 26th.
So I told them, we need to see their banding ordered from our guideline.
And what choices did they make and what's missing? Ready for the chief.
He said he was taking a call,
Oh,
but Sergeant Captain and Hayward was also here. He had poked in and said he was gonna take a call, he should be right now. But that was 15 minutes, or 13 minutes ago.
I would add that the committee, there's a couple on the committee not happy with where the discussion went. And there's a couple that took the conversation in that direction and kept going in that direction after, so there have some interesting discussions.
well, that's why there's a committee.
So it seems like most of the stuff they're talking about is hardware versus software type. What they're talking about. I mean, the software you.
I think they have the LMS up really good.
It's hard to replace.
Can also be hard to accept gifts given for a specific purpose
Correct.
when you have
This whole thing, they were
budget
talking about,
control.
do you do iPad or Chromebook drives, but then it's like, well, then somebody donates something that's 4 years old, you say no to it, versus something that's 1 year old, and every kid has a slightly different machine, and then how do you update that, goes out, switch and toss it, triage, what do you do with it? So there, there's a lot of discussion we need to figure out.
I'm sorry, I'm with the police department.
Right.
There is-
Why
there
everybody's
is-
waiting for me.
Yeah, there is a video recording in progress.
That's
So
okay.
you should know.
Sure. I look good on camera.
You do.
Like good side.
It's gonna get a lot of hits.
Unfortunately, the chief is tied up, we have an appointment going on. He's with the selectmen right now
Ah,
with that, but
he's deputized you.
he's deputized me for the time being. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but
We did that a while ago.
Do you know members of the FinCom? You were here last
I
year, right?
I was, yeah, I recognize quite a few faces.
You're
I'm there.
captain now.
I'm not
Not
yet.
yet.
Knocking at the door, but
Okay.
I'm Gary Hayward, by the way. I'm scheduled to be the next captain, well, the captain for the police department, very shortly. Hopefully that pans out, and I don't blow it tonight. Do you wanna wait for the chief, or you want me to start?
If you're comfortable, I mean, when we
I
met,
can start, you can
you
join in.
were well on
Sure.
top of it, so
I think what we need to do, if you can indulge me for just a minute, I just wanna go through what our department does, how we try to run things, and then we can, if you don't mind, we can go through the budget and I can give you breakdowns and things along that line, as far as that's concerned. To start off with, we have a great group of guys. Our guys don't have to volunteer for any of the programs that they do, but they do. It's above and beyond their job requirements. In order to do the programs that we have on our department, they backfill their shifts. And what that means, it might not mean a lot to people, but backfilling the shifts is not an overtime basis, it's more of a reserve, taking the shift over at less cost to the town. It saves a ton of money that way. And without the full-time officers doing this, we'd never be able to establish, I mean, complete accomplish the programs that we have. Now, to start off with, just to give you an idea, I have a bunch of copies here, so I'll visit. I'll pass these around so you understand. The staffing of our department compared to other departments around the area is the lowest. We have 10 full-time officers. Departments around the area have a minimum of 11 to 12. And it might not seem like a lot, but another person would definitely help out. And we're not saying that we're going for another person, but it would definitely help out in what we have to accomplish. The other thing I want to say about our officers and the group of guys that and women that we have, they do things on their own. They'll come in on their own time and patrol the streets if something's going on. There's a rash of car breaks in the area, or car breaks that hit this community. It's not unusual to see a Topsfield police officer patrolling the streets in his own cruiser. And he's doing it on his own. It's not an overtime basis. They come in on their own time to do their assigned specialties. It's not unusual to find a guy there a couple hours before a shift or staying a couple hours after a shift to accomplish some of the assignments that they've chosen to do. Once again, it's not costing the town. They'll come in any time of night to assist with emergencies. When the power goes out, when we have the situation that we recently had with all that, they'll come in if we put the page out, and they're coming in and they're not expecting to get paid. They're just coming in to help the community. They volunteer their time for community-based events. Some examples are like the movie night, things along that line that we try to bring into the community. They volunteer their time to get things for the department. Now, I don't know if many of you are aware of this, but our first course of action if we need something for the department is going on Craigslist free. That's the only thing to find out. Through that avenue, we've outfitted our department. We've got secondhand stuff. We've got cubicles. We've got desks. We've got chairs. We've got conference tables. We've got everything regarding what we need. We've got blinds for our window through Craigslist free. And our guys will volunteer to go pick this stuff up and install it or remove everything without any charges going on.
If I could interrupt for just a second, for the two people who just came in, there's a video recording. Okay.
I'm getting your best side.
You got my best side?
Our guys do the building, a lot of the building maintenance, the construction aspect of it, from like the booking room counter to the things that need to be accomplished in there, from patching walls, from everything. They'll come in and do this. So I'm very proud of our department in that aspect. If you go to any other police department on the North Shore, you go to any other police department anywhere, I guarantee this isn't happening. Guarantee it. There's no doubt in my mind. Everybody's looking on other departments to get overtime for all this stuff. Our department, I'm very proud of that. They have a sense of community and they have a sense of our department and what we want to accomplish, and they come in and do these things. So with that being said, the other thing that I wanted to bring in, I mentioned briefly about how we do our shopping, Chief, with Craigslist free. And how the officers volunteer their time for the programs that we assign to them. Another big thing that we did this year is we got an APHIS machine for our department. And APHIS is putting us back into the present mode of policing, so to speak. But the APHIS machine was upwards of $20,000. And that did not go through any town funds. We solicited businesses in the town, and we also partially funded part of that through the investigative funds, correct?
Yeah, the forfeiture funds.
Forfeiture funds.
So that was, the bulk of the money was raised by the police association, so it wasn't the actual police department, and it was donated, which was accepted by the board of selectmen through their acceptance process.
So,
APHIS is?
APHIS, I was just gonna say that, so for you, those of you that don't know, it's an automatic fingerprint identification system. So what that does is if we put somebody in custody, we do their prints, we can get a true identity on them within a matter of seconds, as opposed to having to go to the FBI and then 6 months down the road finding out what it is. It's crucial in a bunch of areas, so we know that we have the true identities. It's crucial during October when the fair is in town. And it also submits all of our fingerprints to the FBI, which is we're required to do. And that's going with firearms licensing, things along that line.
And this was this machine was actually mandated by the state police that all departments must conform to an automated system a few years ago. But so we were actually out of compliance by using the old ink pads and fingerprint cards. So this brings us up to the standard as required for the state.
I think that's some of the stuff that I wanted to touch on with you. As a matter of fact, with Catherine and some other people can attest to that I'm pretty stingy when it comes to buying things. We didn't let them buy staplers last year because I knew I could get them at a yard sale for $1. So.
I think he enjoys going to the yard. He's just using our department as an excuse.
So anyways, we try to minimize the cost to the community by doing all this stuff.
Appreciate that.
And this is something we've, as you know from our past budgets, so we come in with a very lean budget. You know, we try to explain and justify what we need and why we need it. And that's something that we realize that the taxpayers are entitled to. And they should know what the money is spent on it. And if we can find it through a lesser means, that's more power to us, I think. And I think just goes to show it's not only the administration of the department, it trickles right down to all the members of our department have that attitude towards the public, and we're very proud of that.
So, we do have one minor correction on here. It has, I'm just passing this around, it really doesn't do anything to the bottom line. It basically just makes something a little bit clearer, and that's on the department request. The chief's salary should have been level funded at the 125 with an increase of 25.
And technically, it was appropriate at the 115, 315, but in actuality, my contract went back to the start of the fiscal year to the 125 level, so it only shows the percentage changes. It doesn't affect the bottom line of the request for fiscal year 19 at all. But it drops the actual budget request to 4.5% overall, from over 5%. So it's on the first line of fiscal year 19 level funded. It's now at 125 as opposed to 115, 350.
That's actually not consistent, though. That I don't think that we should be making that change on this, because it's not consistent with all departments. With that, have the retro earnings on them.
Okay.
The level funded that's here is the FY18 appropriation, so that doesn't match the FY18 appropriation. Unless we do that with all departments, it's not gonna be consistent across the board.
Well, we don't have to if you don't want. I just wanted to bring that to your attention that in actuality, the percentages are actually lower than what shows on the original budget submitted.
So-
And that's the reason why. So if you don't want to use it, that's fine,
So-
but just so you understand.
The translation would be is that the way it looks now, it looks like you got a $12,000+ raise this year, when in fact,
some
The
of that
raise
was the
was
previous year.
over previous year as
You can
well.
give me that this year if you
Yeah,
want, I don't.
understand. No, we can't. We don't get any of this.
Right, but the final number's different, so, no, it's not.
No, it's gonna,
1.75.
the numbers won't change,
Other ones,
just a percentage.
It's more of a, way to do it is, it's more of just making sure the information's out there.
There were funds in the 18 appropriation that lived in a salary reserve.
Right,
To actually pay the cost of the contract once
Right.
it was settled, which was after we voted the
right, but unless we
appropriations,
move that for
which
all
we don't
those.
redistribute for
Right.
everybody.
I mean, I think the best place to indicate that would be in the notes in terms of what the actual percent increase is based on the timing of the contract.
But if you deep a jar, it's an accountant.
But that does lead to, that would be interesting to look at, is what our past appropriation was and what actually came.
Well, when we get 1 year farther on, we'll have the actual.
Right, so looking back this year and seeing what was the appropriation for 18.
Just trying to get this all in line here, because I did quite a few calculations. So basically what I did with this year's budget under the chief's approval, this is the first time I took over doing the mainstay of it, so I'll have some answers for you, is I did a bunch of breakdowns, so it's more helpful to understand. You know, what I did was overall, about a year ago, we installed a overtime cost breakdown that Catherine is currently managing. And what that basically does is, every week, we go through the overtime that's spent on our department, and we'll classify it. This will give us a better idea of where the funds are going. So, for example, if we have an investigation going on, and somebody is doing overtime for that investigation, we'll be able to allot it to that category, and in turn, figure out exactly where we've been going with different items. With that being said, we did a little bit, I did more breakdown on it, and I'll give you copies as we go along and answer any questions, by all means. I have a habit of talking too much, so interrupt and let me know. But when I did this, and this being the first year that I did the budget, I totally wanted to understand exactly what's going on with it. I'm not unlike what the town is doing. It's for my purposes to find out, to be more educated, to see exactly where we're going with it. And when I calculated it all out, and I know it seems like it's a lot of money. It seems it's $1.5 million something. But if you break it down, the cost per person per day is 62 cents for the entire police budget. 62 cents a person per day. Now,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
62 cents per day
Per
is the
person.
increase?
No, the total budget,
The
Per,
double budget.
per town resident.
per town resident.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
I'm thinking of the police.
Oh, no. No, per resident, it costs you 62 cents per day for the police department.
And how do you get the $1.5 million divided by 6,000 to 62 cents?
Well, it's not
Divided by
6,000, the
365.
population is 6791, and then you have a business population of 137. And I'm adding the business population as one person. So you're talking about 6928. And if you divide that into the $1.6 million roughly, by 365, it's 62 cents a day. And if you want to include, and I know we're talking about it, but that includes everything that we have on the budget. On top of that, and we could get into it at another time, is if we talk about the cruiser that we replaced, you're looking at the 65 cents per person per day. When I looked at that, I'm like, that's reasonable to me. As a matter of fact, this is my investigative aspect coming out of me because I do the investigations. I told the chief, I immediately ran down to the grocery store and I said, what can I buy for 65 cents? And when you look at when I walked around, I said, what is something that everybody uses every day that is 65 cents? And the only thing that I could come up with was a yogurt. And that was more expensive than the budget that we're bringing forward. I buy 2 of these a day, but this is $3. And I'm not trying to downplay what the people are spending. I'm really not. I'm just trying to put it into perspective, a little bit of what we try to do and how we try to go about it.
So if we took that 62 cents per day and applied that to Oxford, what would that number look like? So there's 52 cents a day.
Yes.
I think it's a neat one. But in the town, we tend to do that. But sometimes, like, if we compare these numbers, are 62 cents a day, and went to some of these other communities that have similar sized departments but more population.
What
That would be- that would
have
be
a
a- that would-
residency of 8,000?
Right, well, let's say, so then you'd be comparing 62 cents a day to 54 cents per day. So you'd be starting to ask those questions about efficiency.
That's a good question. That is a good question. But in essence, you've got to figure out exactly what programs they have going. You know, because they might not be offering the same programs to the citizens that we're offering to us. And, you know.
Okay, and that would be a great discussion. What
Right.
programs is the extra money buying you?
Right.
And
If
is
it
there?
is extra, because
What?
Boxford
Right.
has 12 officers instead of 10, so maybe it's not,
I agree, but if you look at if you do that division,
yeah.
Right.
they've got a pretty favorable ratio. Yeah.
To be honest with you, I couldn't answer that because I'm not familiar with their ratio.
Yeah.
I was more concerned with.
Right, sure,
Well,
of course, but I'm just sort of, that's an interesting way to look at it. What's the, what's it getting you?
I get you. Right, I understand that.
So I think you want to discuss the increases and decreases and run it down in categories, or?
I have a question for him on big increases, thank you, Chief. If I can read this line item here. This line item 51310 about overtime, up about $54,872.
You want to just start at the top and just work our way down?
Sure.
Madam Chairman, can we get a copy
I mean,
of
it's-
this,
so do
so
that.
we can follow along with you? Is there, we have an extra
There are
pen.
spares.
We'll share one, yeah.
There are
a
spares?
spare.
Oh.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I've got my own computer.
I'll pass this along to you also. I don't know how many copies that we have. You know, but this is a line by line breakdown of items along, that we have in our budget. It goes from the beginning, the executive secretary, all the way down to, what we have, and it has, the salary aspect of it, the wages. I also have this that I'll pass along to you. And this is according to the wage aspect of the budget. It has the explanations. It'll show you some challenges that we have, things along that line. That's the sick time, that's more of the overtime, right? Yes. That was the overtime aspect of it. And this right here is the wage category. So if we take a look at it, it might give you some explanations, and it can explain it a little better, so you can have you follow along.
So we're gonna look at the regular officer wages. There's an increase of, we already discussed the $2,500, my increase is contractual. It should be 2%. And if we go down to the regular officer wages, $11,344. Did you pass this out there?
No, it didn't.
That's a breakdown of all the full-time officers and what their standard base pays would be. And that's, the difference in the 11,000 is the 7,500 that we approved last year for the captain's position, plus any additional changes for officers going up to the next step and coming off of probation. That's all contractual. There's no new growth in any of that. So these are all contractual increases, the 11,344.
So getting back to your original question, there is a substantial increase in the overtime wages. Part of it is because of the new officer.
Well, let's go down by the line.
Yeah.
Let's start.
Okay, you're gonna go through?
Yeah, we'll go down to that,
Yep.
it's easy, we'll just follow them down. So again, the police administrative assistant is, again, contractual at 2452, no, I'm sorry, well, you're not a contractor actually, right, so it's what the town grid is at, pay grid. So there's no changes in that. And then we had a reduction in Jen's position because of Sandy's experience, so there's actually a reduction of 1431 on her salary for the
Is
year.
that the position that was sort of temporary while we sorted out issues with all the reporting software?
Yeah, we're going between 9 hours and 12 hours, so that's consistent at the 12-hour mark that we ran this year. That would be keeping her at the 12 hours with still a reduction of 1431 in the position.
I mean, there was some hope that that position we wouldn't need once the software issues were
I don't know, Jen, do we
sorted
need you
out.
for 12 hours?
I do.
Right, but I think Karen's bringing a point, when you first brought this up, it was.
We
it was a
did, but that,
one-time.
that's true.
Yeah.
And as I indicated to the committee over the last couple of years, is what we pretty much changed a lot of the administrative duties as Sergeant LaBelle retired. It pushed him more into the administration, into the clerk's office, to keep the office out in the street more and not tie up a highly paid supervisor where we could have the same duties done at a lower rate.
Right,
you
but
know.
as a marginal basis, it's showing up as more expenditure. Right. That's on a marginal, yeah, I mean, you've got to.
I think for the duties that she's covering, for the minimum amount of 3 hours per week that we were discussing on adjusting is she's really taking on a lot more duties and responsibilities that's necessary.
One of the other things that we looked at too with that position is, we do have billing for details. And in that billing for details, we have an administrative fee of 10%. And Jen is currently doing all the detail billing, doing all the collections, things along that line. Now, as it stands now, year-to-date, that money goes back into the general fund. And that 10% year-to-date is $40,000. So $40,000 has gone back into a position that we have for $13,000 on it. Now, as far as the onset of that position, I wasn't around for that, the chief knows better off with that. But by the end of the year, the funds that we get from that 10% is well gonna triple or quadruple the coverage that we have for that position, so.
And the,
You're right.
so down to the matrons is just an adjustment according to the grid,
Yeah, the other thing with the matrons aspect of it.
$116.
Yeah, the other thing with the matrons aspect of it is we were just hit by the jail with new mandates regarding prisoners going to the jail. And it's gonna be hard to figure out exactly what the cost of that's gonna be. But for instance, if we had a processing before, we would do the booking process and send the person up to the jail. Now, there's more things that we have to get in line before we go, and sometimes the prisoners aren't gonna be able to get up to the jail in the amount of time before they get to court. So they're kind of restricting us a little bit about jail intake. That's one of the challenges that we're gonna face in this upcoming year, to see exactly what happens with that, so.
54, this is the full-time officers overtime, 54,871 increase. If you see the breakdown of salary and line items, the bulk of the funds, 35,577.60. The funds necessary for the new full-time police officer to be sent to the academy. That's a position where when they're in the academy, it's contractual, it has to be filled a certain percentage by full-time officers, and the rest of the time, it's filled with reserve officers, so we try to save money in that regard. That's the cost associated with that.
But at the same time you're doing that, you still have to pay the officer to go to training,
Correct.
so it's not a wash.
And most of the breakdown regarding the overtime aspect of it is on this, so it'll give you an idea of where that's at.
On that, just because it seems like a different model.
Yes,
Can
well,
you
this
hire-
is my model.
Yeah, no, but when you hire someone to the academy, can you hire positions where they've gone to the academy and then you hire them on, so you don't have this training?
We have,
I mean, I'm not used to it, I'm used to
Yeah,
sort of
yeah.
like, you know, the
Yeah.
college recruitment thing.
we've had a process in our department where we hire officers, at the time we had auxiliary police officers. We're in the process going through accreditation right now for our department, and we've disbanded the auxiliary officer program, and we take officers only as special police officers. So but in the past, they've come on as auxiliary police officers, which was a voluntary position, and they were promoted to special police officers where they could do details, and then they were promoted to reserve police officers, which they do the same duties as a full-time officer, but of course at considerably less money. And then what that allows us is the ability for the chief and my staff to review these officers, see if they're a fit, see if they're the proper type of caliber of officer that's necessary for our department. So I've always called them as like a AAA system, minor leagues, where we're able to see the officers, see how they perform, weed out the ones that are not capable and not in the best interest of the town or the department, and carry these forward. And then eventually they become full-time police officers. Some of the reserve police officers at the time went to the academy themselves as a self-sponsor, and we weren't responsible for the fees associated. We've had three officers do that in the past. This group of auxiliary officers and now reserve officers, they've attempted to go to the academy as a self-sponsor, but because of the civil service lists that have just come out, the academy is backed up. We were just lucky enough to get the position for the new officer for the June academy. There are no more academy positions open for the next year and a half. So there's MPTC, the training academy for the state, is going to be in a quandary. How they're going to train officers when they're only allowed technically to give them a 270-day waiver to work the street. So this is going to be an issue that's forthcoming because there's not enough academy space out in the department. So I know it's a long way of answering your question,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but can we take lateral transfers? Yeah, we could take a lateral transfer from another department, but then again, what are we getting? We don't know what we're getting, and that's where we see the program that we run. We know what we're getting. We're getting quality officers because we've trained them. We've brought them on board. Could we have that same effect by bringing someone on from another department?
It's just as you're looking at a budget, you know, you've probably heard the same litany of.
I
Sure.
understand that, but
Sometimes
that
stuff,
also
and,
destroys
you
the
know.
morale of these people who have started with the program for many years and have worked their way up through the department.
I totally get it, I'm just sort of looking for.
The other thing that you gotta,
And-
oh, excuse me.
And we looked at that. I mean, I look at all options and what is the best. If I didn't have a quality candidate, I would look at those options, you know? I mean, as a chief, we have to look at those options. We can't just take someone off the street. And I don't know if you have any law enforcement friends or you know what's going on with law enforcement field the last few years, but it isn't the best field to work in, all right, because of the public support that there's quite a bit of lack of in certain communities. Fortunately, we don't have that here. We have a department that is, I think, is embraced by the community, and we try to do our best 100% of the time. So the demand for candidates or applicants coming into the law enforcement field isn't there anymore, you know? It's hard to fill dispatch positions. We see that up at the RECC. It's hard to fill full-time police officer positions. And it's a difficult profession right now. I'm in my 40th year. It's not getting any easier, you know?
Are
So
you a civil service department or,
no, we're not civil
so
service.
take it as a compliment that I had to ask.
Chief, I have two questions, please. Is training one full year and then it's done?
6 months training.
6 months, okay.
Yes.
So-
Right, so the cost won't be
This
there.
won't be.
This is a one-time shot.
One-time shot, won't be up next.
Yeah.
It's,
Of course,
well,
next year.
well,
You
per
have
one time for
somebody
this
else.
candidate.
This
Right.
candidate,
Let's
yes.
be, you know,
And
there
then,
may be more of these in the future.
and then the
It
second
could be.
question, the candidate comes in at the bottom of the pay scale, I assume is a young.
90% of the pay.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then do we have them locked down for a number of years?
No.
The thing behind it too is, and I did a little bit of a cost analysis between doing that and bringing a lateral transfer over, and which you were suggesting. And in essence, if you bring somebody else in from outside this agency, they're gonna have to go through an FTO program that we set up, which is between 4 and 6 weeks, depending on how they acclimate